When I was a kid, one of my favorite songs from The Sound of Music was How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria? So that's kind of what ran once through the court mind, possibly why I became a lawyer, because what we do at the courthouse, as you know, is we solve problems. So every sort of thing we do, we solve your problems. Now, occasionally it's a happy day when you come visit us at the courthouse. We do weddings, we do adoptions, and those are, sometimes they start more problems, but that's a different discussion. But we're a problem-solving place. So today, I'm going to talk to you about one of the issues that we saw coming in the community that you would not think about creating its own separate program for. We created something called the Elderly Law and Justice Division out of an elderly law initiative. And let me tell you first how that came about, what we had going on that made us even think that there should be some sort of a problem that we should talk about with elderly people coming to court, because that's really what the problem is about. I am in my hat as many things that you do besides presiding over cases at the courthouse. I run the pro bono committee that we started in 2011, where we give free legal appointments 2 days a month, 30 minutes to low-income people. The lawyers volunteer and we do legal assistance in the courthouse. We also have volunteer lawyers that help veterans. We do a lot of community service programs out of that. Well, in my hat as the chair of the pro bono committee, I do a lot of work with Land of Lincoln Legal Assistance Foundation. The executive director of Land of Lincoln emailed me, this is Clarissa Gaff, and she said, we're having a whole lot more requests for people, for elderly people to do wills, powers of attorneys, other sorts of paperwork. And while Land of Lincoln helps everybody that's elderly regardless of income level, they don't have enough attorneys to do this. So what she wanted us to do was to work with our pro bono attorneys and train them on some issues to deal with the elderly, so maybe they would volunteer to do that. So that's happening over here. I have an email. The state's attorney, Tom Gibbons, calls and says, okay, this is another hat. I've been the chair of the Family Violence Prevention Council since 1999. It's an offshoot of I was a divorce lawyer, so, you know, and I just do that. So he calls me in my hat as the family violence person and says, Judge, we're having an issue that we're seeing more in criminal court and in order of protection court, where we're having elderly victims that are having a hard time coming to big court docket calls and understanding and keeping up with what's going on. And we're wondering whether we should think about some sort of protocol or creation of some separate rules to help us deal with that in both the felony and the misdemeanor-ish courts. So I'm like, well, we could, and he said, so I was thinking maybe we could get a committee together and talk about that. And I said, well, coincidentally, yeah, I think we could. So then, third thing, one of our judges had gone to some extra judicial education stuff, Judge Sarah Smith, and she had brought back materials on the idea of creating some elder justice divisions or protocols as the population is aging. So she gives those to us and says, don't know if you're interested in this, but I thought it was an interesting idea. So, you know, you don't have to beat me over the head repeatedly to get my attention. I've got this request, and this request. So I talked to Chief Judge Hillo, we create a committee. We had the Land of Lincoln people, we had they have a person who's an elder law specialist, Megan, so she joined us, people from the state's attorney's office, a couple of other judges, private attorneys that do probate, and we all met several times and we looked into what exists out there to help the elderly. And we decided we had several targets of concerns for elderly. And I don't want to target or suggest that there's anybody in this room that might qualify as an elderly person, but domestic violence, which is financial exploitation, it could be physical abuse, it could be neglect. It's a huge epidemic in the country for elderly people. They figure statistically only about 10% of the elderly domestic violence victims there are reports for, that it's just because of all of the areas. You have the scams, whether, you count that however you want to, but hail damage goes through when somebody shows up at their door and says you need to pay us to do your roof, and then they don't really do it. Or you get the phone call from the IRS that if you don't give us money within 2 hours in a parking lot, you're going to be arrested. I mean, but people believe those things, and they target those at the elderly. So you have a lot of elderly victims. So we're worried about the domestic violence and the financial exploitation, and helping those people come to court. But we also just have elderly parties in cases. And sometimes if you're in a big room and it's a small claims docket, and maybe you'll notice I walked up here with a cane, you have mobility issues, or you don't hear as well as you used to, or you just have some problem understanding what's going on, and the room is really crowded. It's like being in a really loud, crowded restaurant where somebody's talking to you and I don't know what you do. I just smile and nod and figure out, if it's important, somebody will tell it to me later. So we have those issues and concerns, and so we're like, well, we have to deal with more than just the domestic violence victims that the state's attorney was worried about. We have to look at what's available and what we can do to help everybody that comes to court have a better outcome in not their case coming out better, but a better process, a better experience at the courthouse. So what this committee did is we created a group. We called it the Elder Justice Initiative originally, and we decided that the goal of this new program and initiative would be to just ensure better access to justice for elderly people by providing better implementation services, by making sure that information is out and solving, so everybody understands what's going to happen when you get to court, where you go, what to expect. Because sometimes, and I catch myself doing this, sometimes like if I have to be someplace, I want to drive by there the day before and know where it is and where I'm going to park and all that stuff so that I don't have an issue on the day of. My kids tell me that's because I'm getting older, so what do you do? But just that sort of, you want everybody to have a better experience out of the procedure. So we looked into, are there any other elder justice courts? Well, not surprisingly, Cook County has one, because Cook County has such a population that they do it differently. Well, Cook County, as you might not be surprised to hear, has a whole floor of a building dedicated to their Elder Law and Justice Division. They have judges, they have social workers, they have a foundation, they have money. Well, we don't have any of that. If anything, we're losing funding because of the new budget process in the county, so we're certainly not going to have any money to do this program. So we have to figure out what can we do to help people that's not going to cost us anything else. So we created the Madison County Elder Law and Justice Division. I have brochures, and if you guys wanted to pass these out, it will give you something. You don't have to read it while I'm talking, but it gives you something to look at later to get an idea of what we created and what the services are. So what we've done is thinking about first the access. The criminal can kind of take care of itself, and I did point this out to the state's attorney. What we do is the court for the criminal division, so I'll start with that one because it's the easiest. What we do over there is they know how old their victims are, and I'll tell you what was depressing for Judge Hill and I particularly. We started asking the group that brought all this together. We had the Land of Lincoln and the private attorney and the aging specialist from everywhere. We had these grouped together. Well, what age group are we talking about? And they said, well, Illinois Department of Aging, all of those programs start when you're 60. And Judge Hill and I looked at each other and I said, guys, now I'm a little concerned about, I'm helping to create a division that I qualify for. So it's like, oh golly, that young. And Illinois law, whether any of you knew it, if you're age 70 or above and you have a civil case, statute, we fast track you. All you have to do is tell us, I'm 70 and older, we get your case, you get to the front of the line, you get to get your case done and out of there. That's Illinois law already, because we're like, well, we were thinking it was going to work like the fast track for civil cases. And they said, oh, no, there's all these other issues that begin when people are 60 and all these programs that might be helping them. So the first thing we defined elderly, at least for these court programs, to be anybody who is age 60 and up. So if you know someone, your father, mother, grandparents, I'm going to put you in those categories, who's age 60 and up, and they have a reason to go to court, the first thing they can do is they can tell the clerk, I am over 60, I would like some special accommodations. Or you tell the judge when your first trip to court, or if you have a lawyer, you tell the lawyer, hey, I might need some special accommodations. I qualify for the court's program. I digress, back to the criminal division. Easy for the criminal division, the state's attorney's office always knows how old its victims are. So what they're going to do if you're in felony or you have a criminal case and you're a victim, they're going to ask you if you need special accommodation, and the judges in the criminal division, the accommodation for that will be like your own setting, so that if you're coming and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that you would need to be there for, they might start that, you might have your own time as opposed to a docket call at 9 o'clock, maybe your case would be at 10 o'clock. So that's an easy thing, and they know how old everybody is. Well, then come over here to the civil division where I sit. We don't know how old you are, and we don't ask you because it's really none of our business for most things. There's a couple of divisions that we do know age, but mostly we don't. So you have to tell us if you're 60 or up and if you want specific services. So first off, you're going to have to tell us, I might ask somebody, do you know we have this division if you're interested in any of these services? But it's sort of like at the movies when the kid tells me, I already put in the senior citizen price for you. I'm always like, so you knew. Yeah, so you don't want to offend people, but you ask us for the services. And what services can those be? We're going to offer tours. If you've got a court date and you're a little worried about figuring out where you're supposed to be at the courthouse, where to park, I wish I could tell you where to park. There's, you know, because that's the biggest thing is that we have a free parking lot that seems like it's 40 miles away from the building. We have some handicap spaces over by the administration building, so you'd have to get from the administration building over to the courthouse building. So parking is the biggest problem. So generally we would try to tell you there's a drop-off point right outside the building, and try to have a friend drop you off might be the easiest. But once you get into the building, then what division are you going to? Are you going to small claims, which moves around, it doesn't have its own set courtroom, traffic, landlord-tenant, family division, the arbitration docket, there's all sorts of dockets, and if you're not familiar with the place, it can be a little daunting as you walk in the door. We have some volunteers that are justice court people, they're college students that we have trained to help answer questions. We're trying to get more of those. The hope would be not only will we do a tour to show you where you might need to be going, even if you come for jury duty, but where is it you show up and report to? So to help people with that and have more students stationed there to not just tell you this floor, this corner, but to be able to go with you, to get you to the right place so that people, it is astonishing, but you know, well, it's not astonishing. If you come to the courthouse because you're a party, you have a problem. That's the reason you came there. You have some sort of a legal issue that you're there for, and you're thinking about the reason you're there. So the other stuff we tell you, third floor, turn right over there, blah, you get to the third floor and everybody's off the elevator going, where was I supposed to go? What room am I supposed to be looking for? So if we can get somebody to get the person to the right place, it's a nicer public service than just a quick direction. So tours ahead of time and staff to help you get there. Also, we have some courtrooms, it's an old building that's over 100 years old, if any of you came to our 100th birthday anniversary. We don't have what you'd call a lot of accessible courtrooms. We have probably 2 courtrooms that are fully handicapped accessible. One is on the 3rd floor and one is the 1st floor misdemeanor traffic courtroom. Other than that, some of them you can get in, but like if you needed to be a witness in my courtroom, you have to go up the steps to do that. I mean, so partly if we know that somebody can't go up steps or can't do that, we have one courtroom, we can make sure that's the courtroom your case is set in. So if we know what the need is, once somebody requests, then we will do our best to match that person with the accommodation that they need. I have had cases where I have a witness in a wheelchair, my witness box is up 3 steps, So obviously, we just have them testify from their wheelchair. To me, if it's me, I come down so I can hear it easier. But if it's a jury, they turn around and they testify that way. Well, first off, it makes the person feel a little embarrassed. You should never be embarrassed about whatever your disability may be, but still, they feel singled out. Everybody else is doing it differently. So if we knew that in advance, we would try to use the courtroom that you could get up to the witness stand in a wheelchair and no problem. So partly tell us that you need help and tell us what the help is, and we'll try to get you in a courtroom that's better suited for it. We have a couple of courtrooms that you can't even get up close to the judge without going up a step. Well, that's not the best place to be. Do I think that over time the county should perhaps renovate to be more accessible? Yes, but I don't run the budget, so what I think and what you can afford to do are not the same thing. So anyway, we're going to try to show you where to go. We're going to try to get you into a space that's accessible based upon what you need. What's the third thing we can do to help you make your experience better? We can give you a time and a location where you can hear the proceedings, where maybe there's only one case going on at a time. So like when we have a small claims docket or a landlord-tenant docket, any of you that are landlords and have ever tried to evict somebody, that's a huge courtroom full of people. It's loud, it's crazy. If you have any hearing issues or anything that makes it hard to follow what's going on, this is not a place that you're going to be able to keep up with very well. So you tell us, I'm on the landlord-tenant docket, I'm over 60, I really need my own time. That judge will accommodate you by moving your case later into the docket, or if we have to, into a separate room or another day. So we're not promising, and I want to be clear, you don't get a better outcome in your case because you're older. The facts of the law are the facts of the law, and they get applied to everybody. But we want to try to make the experience one that you feel like you were able to tell us what it is you're there for, and you're able to get what you're entitled to without just giving up. And I will tell you that part of the reports we had were that we had elderly domestic violence victims on the order of protection docket that just gave up and said, never mind, I don't want to proceed, because it was clearly too much going on around them. Well, we don't ever want to think that somebody abandoned what they could be asking for in court because it seemed too hard to ask. You may not get what you ask for, but we wanted to open the door and make it simpler. So this brochure that I brought you will outline the services that we can provide and how we do them. I have I guess it's the honor of being the judge that's been assigned to be the presiding judge of the Elder Law and Justice Division. What that means is I work, especially, and this is an additional thing that we want to say, sometimes people have more than one case. You might be in probate court because of a disability issue, or somebody's asking to have someone declared a disabled adult. They might also have a landlord-tenant case. They might also have a family case. It's a big pain in the neck to make 3 trips to court. Suppose you don't drive anymore. Suppose you've got other limited issues. You let us know, we'll lump all of your cases together, and I'll figure out which one judge hears everything. It may turn out to be me, but it may turn out that of the 3 judges that might hear your 3 different cases, one of them is better suited to set aside time and hear them all at the same time. So that's the other access benefit that we think we can do, so that we minimize your trips to court, we make it a little bit easier, and you can try to do everything on the same day, or on at least all the cases pretty much close together. So we outline all of this in here. Please let your friends and family know that we have started this initiative. It's up and running. All you have to do is tell us you would like these accommodations. If anybody has any problems, it is in fact my division. So you call up there, you ask for Judge Crowder, and I will tell you it's hard to get routed, but they will eventually route you to me, and if you get routed correctly, I answer my own phone. I am my secretary. So if nothing else, you can leave a voicemail for me, and I'll get back to you and help you figure out what we need to do to help out you or your family member.